Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Choujin X, Chapter 22. When we last left our heroes, everyone died. Ricardo got decapitated, Ume got a foot through her chest, Ellie got a hand through her chest, Maiko got her neck snapped, and Simon got his throat slit. All by Azuma, who is fully gone kind of crazy in his new Choujin form. So yeah, they might be fine. You know, so many people died that I kind of imagine they're all going to get like raised or something. But either way, Azuma then challenges Tokio to a fight, and all throughout there's this sort of like this narration talking about how in order to become a Choujin you need a complex. Not a lot of detail on like what kind of complex. And that because Azuma became a Choujin, he must therefore have a complex, but he is missing something monumentally important, as the final narration tells us. No clue what that's meant to be, but yeah, shit hit the fan last chapter. Because, you know, half the cast is dead now. So with that said, let's dive right on into Chapter 22, Arm Wrestling. And our picture here is of like a light bulb or something, with a quote. In actuality, God has provisioned man with but one emotion, the ability to sense when another may be a threat. That is to say, fear. The War Choujin Queem. Okay, I guess it's one of those fake quotes that Ishida sometimes like to put into his manga. Don't know who Queem is meant to be. But we open with some narration that follows on the same sort of like imagery we see in the cover. Some 70-odd years ago, the nation of the Choujin, Great Guelta, its president, the War Choujin Queem, who we just learned about, invaded Greater East Asia, including the land of Yamato. The Great Choujin War marked the first time in history when Choujin were a key force in a conflict. Okay. That's some interesting... Okay. I think we need to, like, break that down at some point. So Choujin have been around for a little over 70 years, you know, because, like, as soon as Choujin were populist, it's hard to imagine they weren't, you know, being used in warfare. They're too powerful to not be used in warfare. But this is a new thing. There was a Choujin nation that spawned, this Great Guelta, that attacked Eastern Asia. That's some things to think about. But we see this sort of like, you know, it kind of reminds me of One Piece's Fire Festival, which I think has some basis in Japanese tradition, the sort of like releasing of the lanterns. The Hishizume Festival, held in Yamato, is brought to a close with the Tama Nagashi, a memorial to those lost in the war. Also, this is our first time, I think, learning that this isn't set in Japan exactly, it's set in Yamato, which is interesting. I think there's some historical precedence for that name as well, though I'm not familiar with it. But I think this Tama Nagashi is the festival that was going on before, you know, LA and Tokyo got sidetracked by Ume, which then led into all of this. But okay. The vast majority of the lives lost in the battle were not Choujin, but ordinary humans who had taken up arms to protect their homeland. The following is a surviving citation from Queem. So long as one person is joined by another, they shall, whether consciously or not, battle to the death. That's a very morbid view of the world. Okay. Then we have this shot of an empty building. And then we come into the actual present, where Azuma is just like tackled Tokio. He's not just killing him like he did everyone else. But Tokio is just stunned in this situation. And they sort of like, the two of them roll over each other. And Tokio is just not... I don't know if he's like not physically able to do anything or not mentally able to do anything, but Azuma just like brings his fist up to Tokio's chin and just slams into him over and over and over again. And he like raises another punch, and Tokio weakly, you know, he's like shivering a bit, but he is able to grab onto Azuma's wrists, stopping him from hitting anymore. And we see it Tokio, and he is not doing too hot. Azuma, the drug finally worked then? I'm glad. I was afraid you'd been killed. And Azuma's just not listening to him, despite Tokio just being overjoyed to see his friend alive, even after he's murdered 5 people. And Azuma just picks him up and throws him into a wall. And Tokio thinks to himself, that's right. If even I can become a Choujin, of course you'd be able to become one. But, and we see this shot of the lanterns from earlier. As Tokio's as Azuma leaps over to where Tokio is falling. Why is this happening? And Azuma kicks him down to the ground. He's sent smashing down. And we move to a flashback of an arm wrestling competition as this weak little arm slams down the much more muscular arm. As the crowd gets shocked, Genta lost! And it's Azuma who's beat this guy. And Genta looks around. Somebody take my place. Anybody. Tokio. And he just singles out Tokio. Very rude. Tokio's not big on this. Huh? No, I couldn't. I'm a weakling. But Genta yells at him. Who cares? Just do it. And Azuma tries to cheer him on. Come on. You haven't tried before. And the crowd chants, do it, do it. And they do it. They get ready. Ready, set. And then we slam back to the present, as it looks like Azuma may have regained just a little bit of consciousness there. But Tokio hits the ground. He's kicked into the ground. He's hit so hard, he bounces off the concrete. Azuma lands next to him, and I guess Azuma's not conscious enough, because Azuma gets a good punch into Tokio's gut. He's sent flying, just yells, fight! So I can see, though, the parallels between this and that flashback, honestly. It's a much more heightened version of it, but the same basic concept of Azuma's trying to get Tokio to get out of his comfort zone and fight, and Tokio's not here for it. That's sort of the same thing going on here. Either way, Tokio's now flying over an 18-wheeler that's in traffic now, no longer confined to that building. And Azuma leaps after him, and they land on top of the truck. Or Azuma does. Tokio hits the truck and bounces off of it. But he catches himself and thinks, fight! Or that might actually still be Azuma's thoughts. But Azuma then kicks Tokio off the truck, and Tokio bounces on the road now. And Azuma, of course, dashes after him. This chapter is really just Azuma knocking Tokio all over the place. But it's still interesting that, in those other chapters, with the rest of the crew here, Azuma was very direct, very quick and to the point, decapitating Ricardo, piercing through Ume and Ellie, snapping Maiko's neck, and slitting Simon's throat. Here, he's toying with Tokio. Come on, let's have a real fight here. He didn't care about the others. And then we have this beat of Azuma just sitting there breathing heavy, and he shakes his head so hard that we see after images of it. And I think he screams, I think this is Azuma's scream. Aye! And he clutches his head. We see the veins pulsing. And Tokio tries to pick up Azuma. And we see those chains from his transformation sequence reform. Why? Heavy. And the chains are now covering his hands. He's spawning chains somehow. Which maybe that's tied into the thing he fundamentally lacks that we heard about in the end of last chapter. What are these? And Tokio finally picks himself up and sees him. Azuma, can you hear me? Answer me. Tokio. And Tokio tries to call him us, but he's cut off. Why are you looking down on me? Okay, so we're seeing, we saw kind of hints of this inferiority complex, especially at the very beginning, when Tokio became a Choujin and Azuma just completely shut him off. And now we're seeing that, I guess, to some extent, Azuma sort of, seemingly successfully clamped that down. And now that's all bubbling up again, now that he's no longer hiding all of this from him. But yeah, also from his chain hands, he's spawning blades, I think? And Tokio's just confused. Huh? And Azuma now lunges at Tokio! And jumps into the air, Wait, okay, what happens here? Oh, no, okay, I thought he was jumping into the air at the top of 20. I think he doesn't see the car coming, and the car whacks him from behind. He's sent flying into the air, shocking Tokyo, understandably. Azuma hits the ground, and another truck is coming at him. Azuma! And we see the driver shocked to see a body in the road. But this time Azuma's ready for it, and he just slams his scissor hand into the front of the truck and flips it over. Tokyo just stands there shocked. The truck goes off the road. The guy's still in there. He can't heal from that. He's not a Choujin. The truck slams upside down, and this just sort of leads into a mass traffic accident. Cars are going which way, crashing into each other. Mass devastation surrounding Tokyo and Azuma. Shit's just not going well for people. And we just have this really cool half of a 2-page spread panel of Azuma surrounded by this devastation that he's caused, getting ready to come at Tokyo again. And we focus on some more of these cars all through this line. Fight, Tokyo. Fight. Let me prove that you... And Tokyo's just tired of all of this. He has no, with all this devastation around him, he has no fucking time for Azuma's, stop looking down on me bullshit. What are you even doing? You doofus? What's wrong with you? Why are you? This isn't who you are. Please, Azuma. I'm begging you. And Azuma just keeps pointing at him. The chains and the blades, interestingly, gone. Just his finger, just his hand. And Azuma just looks at him and says in frustration, so you want to fight that bad? Then how about I fight? Oh, and he's beastifying. Damn it. And he puts his hand over his face, and the vulture mask appears full. And he goes into his full beastification form. And we come into the flashback, back to that arm wrestling match. And we see Tokyo's lost the arm wrestling match. So we'll see if this is meant to be the same thing is going to happen in the present, or if it's going to be a kind of, opposite reflection of this. But Tokyo's hand hits the desk. We see him in pain. The crowd all declares, Azuma's our winner! Tokyo never stood a chance. He held out for a while, though. He's stronger than he looks. Maybe Tokyo was sort of didn't try here, which ties into Azuma's present-day frustrations about Tokyo looking down on him. Obviously, Azuma was holding back. Hey, Tokyo, you and me next. But we see Azuma, who looks at his hand, that, there was some real struggle there. We can, see the sweat on his wrist. And Tokyo, laughs it off. Told you I couldn't win. But Azuma looks at this, and yeah, the way the chapter ends, with that close-up on Azuma's eye looking at Tokyo, as we hear child Azuma's heartbeat through this, it does seem like that's when this sort of frustration with Tokyo began. When he gave up, it does seem like Tokyo maybe could have won the arm wrestling match, but chose not to. So we'll see how that ties into what he ends up doing in this fight with Azuma. But first, before we go back into there, we're going to talk about the bulk of the chapter. This is just a weird opening, isn't it? The whole thing with Great Guelta and Queen, and all this stuff that doesn't really mean much. I don't know. Maybe I've been watching so much Titan, I need to look at the themes involved in these stories of warfare, and Titan is a series that wants you to look at it that deep, and maybe this is meant to be some flavor text, and it's not meant to be that deep. I don't know, but it's a really weird bit. I don't know. We find out some wild things, this isn't Japan, it's Yamato, that there is a Choujin nation. I don't know. Lots of there's this last bit that's actually kind of interesting too. The following is a surviving citation from Queen. this wasn't a long time ago. 70 years is not so long, that you talk about things having, like, survived. It's not some ancient or even, like, medieval text. It's like, it's about the same amount of distance as, like, the McCarthy hearings. Like, that's not some surviving text. You can go on the internet and look that shit up. Like, the internet existed during this Great Choujin War. Though, this might be nothing. When you think 70-odd years ago, Japan and a war, the thing you come to is World War II? Wait, no, but not World War II, because we have a date for when this series is set. And I think it's set in the 90s, isn't it? Right? Because, like, we saw Tokyo's birthday, and I think it was, like, 81, right? 82, according to the wiki. So this would actually be 70-odd years before this. Would be, like, the early to mid-20s? Because we said if he's 16, like, 98. Which might be, is there, the Russian-Japanese War? I know nothing about that conflict. I know there was, like, a Russo-Japanese War, I think, around between the world wars, and I know nothing about it. But that does seem to be, if I'm right about when that took place. Let me see if I can find that out. No, that was the 1900s. So maybe not that. Maybe that's not quite an exact match. I don't know. Maybe there is not meant to be a real world comparison here. I'm not sure. Either way, I think we should best. It'd be best to just, like, put a pin in the whole Great Choujin Wars thing. Because there seems to be something going on around there from a plot standpoint, from some kind of standpoint. And we'll just sort of wait to see what Ishida does with that. It's a little weird thing. The rest of this, it continues this arc's focus much more on character work and, like, the thematic work we saw in Sinker, and a little bit, like, the beginning of this arc, like with Pack and all that stuff. Ever since Paper Trip especially, this whole arc has really been heavily character focused around Azuma in particular. And we continue that here. If Paper Trip, I'm trying to think back to how I would thematically describe Paper Trip, and tying some of the things we learned in that chapter to what we learned about Azuma here. Because if that chapter seems to be a mostly positive, if a little reckless, like looking at Azuma's desperate attempt to save Tokyo as a sign of his inferiority, an inferiority complex, which I think we can definitely look at here, given what we learned about him through that arm wrestling flashback. That could be a positive, if, to be fair, wildly reckless demonstration of that. Him going toe-to-toe with Ume, who was far more powerful than him. This is that inferiority complex in its worst form. He's so frustrated at this seeming weakness to Tokyo that he's killed, he's temporarily probably killed 5 Choujin, and he's definitely really killed several humans here. Like, maybe not every single person in this traffic fuck-up dies, but more than one does. Like, the sunglasses guy, who's the first person we see, he's definitely dead. And some more of these guys are probably also dead, but maybe not all of them. Like, this is just not a great look for Azuma. He's fully been swallowed up by this inferiority complex, and he needs to beat Tokyo to, like, prove himself, in his mind. It's not the healthiest option. But, the whole, why are you looking down on me, is what he says as he goes to, like, attack Tokyo. But, like, also, I kind of want to focus a bit on the metaphor of, like, right after he says that line, why are you looking down on me? He lunges at Tokyo, and he's so single-mindedly focused on this subject of his inferiority complex that he gets knocked aside by a car. Like, that's not subtle. It does feel like you can sort of argue against this given, the fact that, like, the cars don't take out Azuma in any way, shape, or form. But you could definitely see that, like, him getting hit by the car right there is a sign that he is blinded. Literally, like, he's literally, adding on to the metaphor, blinded, he doesn't have eye holes in his mask. blinded both physically and metaphorically with this, can't see the car coming, by his inferiority complex. And, we can hope that somehow Tokio will get through to him, much like how he got through to fuck the Sinker guy in the Sinker arc, whose name I'm completely blanking on. God, what was his name? He was good. He was one of my favorites. I cannot remember his name. I'm gonna see if this known Choujin list helps me out here. Shiozaki, that was his name. Because like that, it was Tokio who, despite the fact that everyone's saying we just gotta kill Shiozaki now, Tokio was the one who broke through to him, and they didn't even know each other before this. It's perfectly I think it's a bit of a two opposite pronged problem here, right? On the one hand, Tokio and Azuma have this deep history, and so Tokio knows Azuma much better than he knew Shiozaki. On the other hand, it is that friendship, it is that relationship that's caused this problem. Tokio might be the one person who cannot, under any circumstances, break through to Azuma here. I just don't know. I don't know. But it's a good chapter. It's a really good chapter, sort of looking at Azuma at his worst. Last time was when we saw him in Paper Trip, like I said, it was noble. Excuse me. It was stupid, to be fair, but it was noble. There is no nobility in this form. This is pure rage fueled by this pointless inferiority complex that Tokio calls him out on. What are you doing? What's your fucking problem? And we'll see if Tokio's even capable of breaking him out of this. Maybe this is, I don't know. Actually, maybe beating him is the way to break him through. To break through to him. Because, if Tokio if I'm reading the arm wrestling scene right, and Tokio purposely lost to make Azuma feel better, then that sort of, it's okay pity party is kind of the problem in Azuma's mind. And so maybe what Tokio has to do is just, face him as an equal and beat him. Maybe. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the answer. We won't know until Ishida graces our screens with the next chapter. But for now, this is just a really good chapter. Choujin X kills it. Chapter after chapter after chapter. It's just a damn good time. And I cannot wait to see what happens next. So with that said, I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you'll enjoy the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe or, do whatever makes you happy, And as always, your life is your own, okay? Bye!